Hello, goddesses. How are you? And today in our planet Aphrodite, we have another goddess from UK, and she is Sue Curr, and she is an NLP practitioner. She is a change agent who put people from fear to freedom. And this year, she is turning sweet 60, and she has a mission to touch 1 million life, and move them from fear to freedom. And she's a woman of wisdom. She is just pure wisdom. I had a privilege of meeting her, and it's going to be a great session about self-love, about knowing her journey, and she has a gift for you. So stay till the end and you'll get to know more about her. So welcome, Sue. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good, good. Thank you. So, Sue, let me go back, a few years back, and tell me how things were at your end, because women across the globe are facing their challenges everywhere. That's been my personal reading, in their own ways. So how was your journey then? What kind of person you were? What kind of challenges you were facing? And please tell us. And did you love yourself a lot then?
I actually can say hand on heart, as I'm sat here today, that for a very, very long time, I didn't even know the meaning of being able to love myself, love other people. That's a given. We love our parents, we love our siblings, our families, etc. It never ever entered my head that I should love myself. Why would I?
Why should you? Yeah.
It's not something that is open. It is actually, these days it is more so. There's a massive movement over here to help men and women actually,
Right.
but particularly step up and into their best selves and embrace themselves for who they are, which is all involved in self-love. But in my early days, from childhood really, I guess it was just never in my psyche. It was never in my thought pattern that actually loving myself as such wasn't selfish. Who am I? That's a selfish thing. We love, as people, as humans, we nurture and grow others. It was never on my radar to do the same for myself, and unfortunately it got me into a lot of trouble, both mentally and physically, socially, emotionally, everything. These days I work with people, and I speak a lot, as you know, but I talk a lot about the most important bank accounts that any of us will ever have, in my humble opinion, and that's our 5 personal bank accounts. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the amount of money we have in our banks. Mm-hmm. For me, physical, spiritual, emotional, social, and mental selves, and if these bank accounts are operating in the black, i.e. we're looking after ourselves on a daily basis on all the levels that count, right, then we are far less likely to dip into the realms of overwhelm and depression, anxiety, and very definitely are far less likely to drop into a fear-based way of living. And until I was 26, when we had the first child, I was even more conscious then that actually, as a mother, I had to love human. Right. We'd created human, and he had to have all our love, and he did. Right. My background, my childhood, if you like, was one which was at times very traumatic. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, I've long ago forgiven that. It's only relevant to my present now because it became a catalyst upon which I've rebuilt my life and my future. My story is one that I had in my parents. I had a father who we all of us adored. I had a mother that at best tolerated me, and at times was very physically and emotionally, mentally abusive. Not constantly, but enough as a child to make me think it wasn't enough. I was very conscious as a child of always being a people pleaser, of always wanting to help, and I'll do that, and I now know as a grown-up, and because of the work that I've done on myself and with others, that actually that's a massive red flag for any parent. If you have a child in your life that's already people pleasing at say 5, it doesn't bode well for their mental well-being going forward. Right. By the time I was 39 years old, my mental ill health had unraveled to the degree that I'd had 4 nervous breakdowns by that time.
Oh
4.
my goodness.
They're all well documented. I was diagnosed as being bipolar, which is manic depressive, OCD, anxiety, you name it. I had it pretty much during my what I've come to call my wilderness years, during the time that I didn't love myself. And I didn't love myself enough to look after myself well enough so that I could love the people in my life who I wanted to love properly. But I never connected the dots. I just didn't. It wasn't on my radar that I was doing anything wrong with regard to myself. I was that much on a mission then to be all things to all the people I loved in my adult life, that I forgot me. I just forgot me. And it impacted on my mental health. As I said, that by the time I was 39, I'd had 4 nervous breakdowns, and my already then quite heavy social drinking in terms of alcohol and partying and that sort of stuff became my crutch, which by 52, it was a very long drinking career. By the time I reached 52, I descended into nearly fatal, full-blown but almost fatal alcoholism. And I don't say that with any great pride these days, other than to say to people, if you look at me now and you saw photographs, if anybody sort of follows me on social media and stuff like that, they will see the before and after pictures. It's well documented. My own son, at the height of my illness, my own son walked past me 3 times one day when we went to pick him up from the airport. Didn't even recognize me because he'd not seen me for 6 months. Walked past me and he as his own mother. And that actually wasn't enough to wake me up.
Oh,
in
really?
terms of because I just thought, he's tired, he's this. What I know for sure is that the stories we tell ourselves about anything that's going on in our lives, but particularly with regard to our own selves, the stories we tell ourselves, as opposed to the root cause, become the identity that we adopt. What we think, we speak. What we speak, we act. And if we're thinking, speaking, and acting the same mantra, I'm not enough, I'm not enough, I'm stupid, I'm whatever.
That's what you will be.
That's what we come to believe, and we own it with a passion. We define it. We allow ourselves to define ourselves from. I'll rephrase that. When we allow ourselves to define ourselves from a fear-based perspective, we only ever see the negative side. We only never see the bad bits about us, in inverted commas. There are no bad bits about any of us. I firmly believe we've got something within us that when we can reach it and bring it out, then we can learn to live differently. We can learn very quickly, actually, to move from a fear-based way of living to living freely in our own way and on our own terms. So that's sort of a potted history the last 60 years. But the last 8 years in particular, the new improved me, the new sober me, 2,710 days or something that it is now, is a different person altogether. I'm a different person physically. I'm 7.5 stone lighter than I was 8 years ago, and in pound terms, in UK currency, that's a stone is 14 pounds. So I'm 7 times 14 plus 7 pounds in weight lighter than I was.
Okay, let me do a quick calculation, or in kgs, how many kgs would that be? That sounds like a lot, but yeah. So Sue, what happened? Was it any event that triggered you to own up yourself, or was it just a moment where you felt it, or was it a gradual process? And how was it, for living that life that you almost put yourself in that mold? You were there and you were living, breathing, believing every minute of who you were. And what happened? I'm really curious to know here, like what happened then?
Okay, so by the time it got to September 2012, the best way I can describe it, and I do use this analogy a lot, the best way I can describe it, Meenal, is I was lost and alone inside a mind that was a prison of my own making. Period. I was so deeply locked into the story that I identified with, excuse me, which was that My mother did XYZ to me in childhood. Truth, fact. However, as a grown-up, when I could and should have taken responsibility for my own life but didn't, then I started to blame all my poor lifestyle choices, all my mental ill health issues on her, which was in the very, very, very early stages of my life, i.e. pre-18, that would have been founded to a degree. However, I now know for a fact that I didn't know what I didn't know about my mother and her own background.
Right.
And I long ago forgave that situation. The past no longer has a hold over me because it became my passport to freedom.
Yeah.
I didn't discover that passport for freedom. I didn't apply for that particular passport until I was 52 years old. The day that my health had declined to such a degree that I was already going to my GP, my doctor, for routine blood tests almost monthly, because my blood tests were coming back increasingly poor in terms of my main body systems, my heart, my liver, my kidneys, etc., were declining. And they were declining partly because my mental health had declined to such a degree that I'd become physically unwell. As we both know, stress manifests itself in our bodies in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And in that, because I couldn't cope with my physicality, with my physical ill health, my mental ill health continued to decline, and my go-to default setting became, I'll have a glass of wine. By the time it reached 26th of September 2012, I went to my GP for some more routine blood tests. And as I said, I was 7.5 stone heavier than I am now. I was absolutely bright yellow. My eyes, my fingernails, everything. And yet in here, even though I knew that I was in big trouble, I'd convinced myself that I had a suntan because I'd not long come back off holiday. The stories we tell ourselves are the most powerful stories when we believe them. When I said believe them, when we feel it in here as well as in here, the emotion that we attach to the feelings is what keeps us stuck, but it also can be what sets us free. That day I went to my, she took one look at me, she picked the telephone up and she rang an ambulance and admitted me to hospital as an emergency.
Oh, goodness.
I had not gone to my GP that day. 24 hours later, I would have been dead. And that's not a joke, that is fact. When somebody tells you that, when you suddenly, I have no memory of that first 5 days, none. I have no memory of it. My husband says I was never unconscious. I think I'd gone into sort of a catatonic state of shock. Oh my goodness, everybody will know that I'm this, and this. The big news to me was that actually they already did, and I was just the only one that, although I knew it, I never ever. Yeah, and I was, I spent 6 weeks in hospital, and my consultant came to see me 5-6 days in and said that I was still dying. And in that moment, in that absolute moment, excuse me, I knew what a fool I'd been. I knew that I didn't have any time left. I remember going, I haven't got any time, looking at my watch. And he said, did you not hear what I just said? I told you you were still dying. And I said, no, you didn't hear what I said. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time to do the things that I always wanted to do. Right. Skydive, go to India, do amazing things in my life and run my own business and write a book and and all these things came tumbling out of my mouth like that. And as I sit here now, and I've said this recently, I actually don't know that if that actually would have been enough to save me if I survived medically. But at the moment my consultant left, he walked out, and our daughter, the younger of our 3 children, walked in, and I was crying, and she asked Dad why, and he told her that I was still dying. And in that split second, Meenal, what I saw there became the biggest why that I'd ever needed. I'd always had that why. I just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
That why came in the form of our younger daughter's, the most guttural scream that she let out. And she held my gaze. It seemed like a very long time. And in actual reality, it was probably not 30 seconds. But it's a very long time when somebody's screaming one long scream and holding your gaze. And in her gaze, in her look, I saw anger, for sure. She was very angry at me, because in terms of the alcoholism, that was self-inflicted, because I didn't know how to cope, let alone love myself.
Right.
She was very angry. I saw hatred. She hated me in that split second. She was 17. I was going to be leaving her very soon. Yeah. I saw fear. She was scared to death. Again, she's 17 at that time. But more than anything, I saw the love in her eyes for me that, number one, I'd never seen or recall seeing in the eyes of my own mother. And number two, that I didn't have for myself. I didn't even like myself, let alone love myself in that split second. But in that split second, I made myself a promise. Oprah Winfrey would have called it a light bulb moment. I've subsequently come to call it the day when the fireworks from November the 5th, July the 4th, and New Year's Eve all went off in my head all at the same
time.
Because if Oprah can do it, I can do it better. But I promised myself in that split second that if I got out of there, not only would my life change in the way I looked after myself, it would change for the better for my family, but also instinctively I sort of knew that somehow at some point I'd come to pay it forward for the greater good of others. I had no idea I'd be doing things like this. I'd had no idea that 8 years down the line almost, and I'd be on a mission to take 1 million people from fear to freedom. But instinctively, intuitively, I knew that if I survived, there would be a reason bigger than me. Sense. Yeah. But in being bigger than me, it also meant that if I were to do that, whatever that turned out to be, it also meant that for the first time ever, I had to have a brutally honest conversation with myself. And that became the catalyst for the change that we now see. And it was the most scary place I've ever been. By almost dying, it's the most scary place I've ever been, because in order to be brutally honest with myself, it called for me to be vulnerable. Yeah. It called me to be honest, not only with myself, but with others. Yeah. I need to mend so many bridges that I can't even count them. It called for me to be able to put my hand up and my head above the parapet of my very carefully crafted facade of a comfort zone and ask for the help that I needed. And more importantly, take it in the spirit that it was meant. It was a long time still before I came to understand that loving myself was #sanity, not vanity. That came. Yeah. #sanity, not vanities was something I used a lot across social media. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. And Lao Tzu, I think it was, said every journey begins. A journey of 10,000 miles will begin with a single step. Yeah. And the day I walked through my front door, actually no, the day I took a step outside the hospital front door was the first step of what's been many tens of thousands of steps since. And again, I think, and again, it wasn't conscious, but I think intuitively, I knew I literally had to stop. And from that point on, take each baby step from that day forward as the next building block in the foundation of what has ultimately become my new life, if that makes any sense. Yeah, that's so profound. And wow. I mean, story like these help others to connect. When you are there is no light at the end of the tunnel, because see it. We in this country we have a saying which goes along the lines of you can't see the wood for the trees, i.e. you're too close. Yeah. If you're in a, the only thing you can see is the tree in front of you. You can't see the beauty of the forest around you. Right. I was like that, and I think most of the people that I work with these days are the same. Now, addiction comes in many forms. It could be sugar. Right. On social media all the time. But an addict is searching for something externally when they should be looking inside. Right. But you know what? So is the rest of the planet. That's not an addict. That's not just an addict's realm, if you like. Yeah. So these days, when I describe to others who ask if who I actually work with when I do the work that I do, whether it's in workshops or speaking or one-to-one or whatever, the way I describe myself these days is I work with professional swans. You know, we have swans in this country, big white birds that glide very serenely across lakes and rivers and so on. And the way I describe it is I work with professional swans of this world. They're gliding serenely through life, giving the impression they don't have a care in the world, when all the time underneath the surface where nobody else can see, they're paddling crazy just to stay. and they're paddling like crazy to stay afloat because they don't want to be seen to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
They don't want to be lacking in some way. They don't want to be seen to be unable to cope.
Yeah.
And more importantly, they don't want others to think badly of them. All of which amount to they don't want to be seen to be a failure in some way. And that became sort of the foundation, if you like, that I built my practice on. Because the sort of is, if you're scared of spiders, I'm not the person to come to. You know, I can help you, you know, maybe stroke a spider or something like that, but that's a phobia.
Yeah.
When I talk about people living fear-based lives, I'm talking about people maybe crippled by anxiety, for instance, because of the opinions of other people. So the 5 main fears that I would deal with, and they're all intertwined, to be fair, and they all have spin-offs, so it's not just this, but the 5 major fears that affect most of us in the world when we're living from a fear-based perspective are the fear of change. If I have to stick myself in this, for me not to be an addict anymore, it needs me to hold my hand up and admit to the world that I was.
Yeah.
So change triggers vulnerability for sure, but change also triggers the fear of other people's opinions.
Yeah.
So change, the opinions of others, fear of being a failure and or making mistakes, and fear of lack, that of not being enough. And I'm on a mission. You know what? It doesn't matter to me your age, your gender, your culture, your background, your beliefs. It does not matter where in the world you are. If you're hearing this today or subsequently, I'm going to tell you, you're enough. Whoever you are, wherever you are in this world, you are enough. And if I'd have known that when I was 18 years old, in all honesty, my life would have probably taken a different path. I like to think that it would have brought me along this road, because I really enjoy the things I do these days. And I'm making a difference and seeing the light go on in somebody's eyes when they come out from behind the grey shadows of the deepest, darkest corners of the mind and embrace their life and live in glorious technicolor. There's a massive existing and living. And I've spent years now discovering that. And every day is a challenge. I'm only human, hashtag, only human have to. I have, somebody said to me recently, the thing is, you make it sound and look so easy. And when I finished laughing, she said, what are you laughing at? I said, if you think this has been easy, you're delusional. This is not easy, but it's worth it.
Right.
I'm human, as are you. I have good days, I have bad days, I have days that are completely disastrous. But these days, I hold myself accountable and take responsibility for my part in that. Because every equation, every situation that happens in our life, if we're in that situation and it's happening in repeated areas in our life, we're the common denominator. So everything begins in it, you know, and I didn't had at a time, if I'd have taken responsibility and held myself accountable when I was 18, 21, whatever, I probably would have understood far more quickly that my mother particularly only knew what she knew. And what she didn't know, I now know for a fact, I found out after she passed, to be fair. What I now know she didn't know is how to love herself.
Yeah.
Across as a very selfish person on many levels. I now, this me knows that she was probably searching for the same sort of things I was searching for.
Right.
When my mind, she just handled it differently. And I would say to anybody, you know, please, wherever you are in your life, if somebody's not responding to your situation in the way that you feel you deserve, or you feel that they ought to, then there's something that they don't know about you. And we have to be vulnerable enough and brave enough to say, actually, if you knew this, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Of course, they might laugh and they might ignore you even more. But unless you give them the opportunity to know what it is that you're holding back, because we all of us hold something back.
Right.
We all like to think we're going to keep this little piece of ourself just for us. But it might just be the little chestnut that would turn around somebody's opinion of you or the way they spoke to you and so on. Everything begins and ends with us. And clearly that also includes self-love. And you know what? When I hit that sweet spot in my own life, when I could look at myself in the mirror and go, do you know what? You're all right. That was a start. And now these days it's like, I love you.
Yeah.
A lot,
Yes.
but I always use humor a lot. That's just part of who I am. But I also embrace that. I don't try to hide my authentic self.
Yeah.
And for me, love is about having the ability and the courage to be able to stand up and say to the world, you know what, this is me. Okay, so these days I say to myself every single day, I love the person that I'm becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And I do mean becoming. I don't mean the person that I am, because this person may be better than the person that I was yesterday, but she's not as good as she can be tomorrow.
Wow.
We are becoming every single day that we're alive.
Right.
We're a work in progress. We're an organic species of the human race.
Right.
We live, we learn, we grow. I have a saying that we grow through what we go through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
And when we're open to learning about the things that we're going through, then we are open to the opportunity of personal growth and spiritual growth and all the rest of it. And we have the ability as human beings, we have the powers of both choice and reasoning. It's what sets us apart from the rest of the species on the planet.
Right.
Every single second of every single day, in my humble opinion, is a choice. My choice to stay well and sober is a daily choice.
Right.
Not because I evolve and go backwards and become ill again mentally or start drinking again. I just acknowledge each and every day for what it is. Yeah. And some days, like disastrous days, I will just say, do you know what? This is a disastrous day and I'm going to embrace that. And that will involve tears. It might involve a bit of door slamming or foot stamping or whatever. Hashtag only human.
Yes.
Doesn't mean I don't love myself anymore. It means I'm embracing the validity of my emotions. I'm releasing them into the universe or wherever you believe your emotions go, because it's all energy, emotion, energy, emotion. That's what the word means.
Yes.
We can let go of that energy, that negative energy. We make room for peace to come back, and we make room for the ability to change the emotion that was maybe anger and upset into calm and acceptance, and yet absolutely love. And love that you know yourself well enough, love for a self that knows herself well enough to understand that as a human being, we will experience almost every emotion known to a species at least once in our lives. And for women of a certain age, that's usually daily, to be fair.
Yeah.
You know? And there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot that we can do internally in keeping ourselves calm enough to be accepting of whatever the day brings to us, because whatever it brings has something to teach us, and it's usually about us.
Yeah. Very well said. Very well said. Yes. So as you said, like it's a process, like 10,000 miles that's there. So for the goddesses today, what is one gem, like one baby step, that they can take to move forward, in this journey? So I would like to have one gem from you.
I think, speaking personally, the biggest thing for me was to understand, know, and accept that actually I am imperfectly perfect, just the way I am. Okay. And for me, gratitude became the foundation upon which I rebuilt my life. And I realized very early on in this leg of my life that in order to be grateful for who and what I am becoming, that I have naturally to be grateful for everything that's happened before.
Yes.
My nugget would be, I think, on the deepest of levels and with the greatest of respect, for anybody that perhaps is not yet able to truly say they love themselves, is to, number one, ask themselves why. Why am I not worthy of the love that I will so freely give to somebody else?
Right.
And in doing that, if you can be brutally honest with yourselves, and it will spark. I'm a big fan of spider diagrams. You know, you put, for instance, if you put self-love in a bubble and then do the little spider.
Okay.
I'm a very organic creature, and spidergrams, as I call them, help me to prioritize my thoughts on days when I'm a bit skew-if. But if we can work backwards to the day that we, or to a trigger point, shall we say, that sparked a lack of empathy with ourselves, loving ourselves, etc., that would be the basis at which to start gratitude. So what I'm saying is journaling, for sure, with regard to the gratitude that we have for the life that we have, even if at this moment in time you don't love yourselves, you don't like yourselves, there is something in your life
that you can be grateful.
Or if you feel you don't have it right now, there is something in your life that you had at some point that, even if you didn't know it, when you think about it deeply enough, you will have been grateful for. That's a really good start forward. And just as an aside from that, I'm a big fan of movies, and I went to see recently here the new Tom Hanks film, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very gentle film, and it's all about mindfulness and being non-judgmental, etc.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest takeaway I took away from that film in terms of self-love was quite simply this. I'm paraphrasing it, but it is essentially a quote. On the days when you don't like yourself, let alone love yourself, just sit a minute with yourself and remember all the people who loved you into being.
Wow.
For me, I sat in that cinema, and I don't mind admitting it, tears poured down my face. Just for that one. The film's full of them. If it's available wherever you are in the world, I highly recommend that you go and see it. It will teach you a lot about loving yourself. And I thought I knew a lot, and I came out of that film, wow. But the thought of thinking about all the people who ever loved us into being, when you think about it, is immense. We're not just talking about our parents, but both sets of grandparents, quadruple sets of great-grandparents, etc., etc. Ad infinitum throughout time, all the people who literally loved us into being are responsible for us being here today, and it becomes now our responsibility to pay that forward in respect to them. Whether we loved them or loathed them, if it hadn't been for them, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
We owe it to ourselves to love ourselves. And I said it on the post that I put on earlier on Facebook about coming on here with you today. The song says it all, in my opinion. Learning to love ourselves is the greatest love of all, without exception. Without exception. The oxygen of our lives. If we don't have that for ourselves, how can we realistically expect others around us to treat us in kind? People treat us how we allow them to.
Yes.
But treat us how we show them we want to be treated. And the biggest I ever had was in learning to love myself.
Wow. Beautiful, Jem. It was a Kohinoor.
There are many ways that we can look at this world, but what is for sure that every single thing that ever happens on every given day, from if you stub your toe in the morning when you get out of bed, to crossing the road, to getting to work late on time, we have had a choice in the way that we react or respond. And the massive difference in all of that is I say to people all the time, I do this, I was to practice the pause. If we pause long enough to respond rather than react, life becomes so much easier.
Yeah.
Because we're giving ourselves time to think before we open this and let insult or horridness.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
And again, I think it was a Boy's Own song. You say it best if you say nothing at all. If you really can't think of anything nice or kind to say over the day, just don't.
Just don't. Yeah.
The world needs more kindness, and it starts with us.
Yes. And interestingly, none of the culture, like Initially, I used to think this is an Indian thing. So I used to call it Mother India syndrome, hashtag Mother India syndrome. But more I travel the places, more I interacted with women across the globe, I said, nobody is teaching this.
We become people pleasers. We say yes when no would suffice.
Yeah.
We under deliver, and we never know that we never really understand the power of saying no.
Yeah.
Because we want to be liked and loved and honored and
Yeah.
cherished. And
So now I say, like, totally unapologetically, yes and no. It's like perfect thing.
Absolutely everything. I firmly believe this now, everything begins and ends with us, but everything that ever happens is meant to happen.
For us. Yes,
For us.
there is a learning.
For us, not to us.
Yes.
And even when we can't see why at that moment in time, that becomes apparent later.
Yeah.
But it's also temporary. Everything is temporary. Life itself, we just don't know. We're all here. We're all born, we all die. Yeah. None of us know what's got in between.
Yes.
And it's that unsurety, I think, for many of us, that actually bizarrely keeps us stuck. It doesn't propel us forward to where we say we want to be, because we convince ourselves all the time, don't have the money, not pretty enough, not thin enough, not we buy into our own rhubarb, our own rubbish. We do, and we shouldn't. Yeah. We shouldn't, because we can't be honest with ourselves. Yeah. Me, myself, and I inside my own head. If I can't be honest with myself, I can't possibly be honest with anybody else. Right. Work like that.
So thank you so much. How can we follow you, your work? Tell us about your social handles.
Okay. Well, my name is spelled S-U-E. Sue Curr. U-R-R. I'm on Twitter as @Sue Curr. On Instagram, I'm on as @FearLessLiveMore. On Facebook, my Facebook group is a mental well-being group, but it's for the promotion of it, as in promotion of being mentally well. That's called Everything Begins and Ends with You. It's an open group now, so you can just type in Everything Begins and Ends with You on Facebook. You can join the group gladly. Okay. And my Facebook page is called Sue Curr, Feel Less, Live More. Awesome. But it's a really, my surname is a really unusual spelling. If you type in Sue Curr on social media, I promise you you'll find me, which sounds really arrogant, but I don't mean it to. And of course, there's my website, suecurr.com.
Okay, great. Our goddesses just follow you. We'll get more nuggets, more love from you, and more freedom, And beautiful thing is, Planet Aphrodite is the passport to freedom, So you can apply and just get your passport to freedom. So what is the free gift our goddesses are getting today, Sue?
Well, I have, if you type in suecurr.com, where am I going, that will take you to a hidden page on my website. But there you will find a freely downloadable e-workbook that I have, which will help with it's all designed about, it's called Where Am I Going? Find Your Way to Clarity and Focus. And the first half of it is a journaling tool, so you'll need a pad and pen. Mm-hmm. But it starts off asking questions about all the relationships that we've ever had. So in childhood, how we see ourselves, how we saw the relationships of our others. It's very detailed, and it primarily contains the majority of the questions that I ask myself on the first bit of this leg of my journey. Then there's a sort of a reflection tool, and at the end is a focus, like where I want to be, what am I going to do. So that's freely downloadable to anybody that goes to suecurr.com /where am I going. Mm-hmm. Everybody can have that, and I'm quite happy. I'm not quite sure how we would work this, and I'm quite organic by nature, but I'm quite happy to offer 3, because I only have so many hours in a day. If people contact you, Meenal, directly, I will send you. I will leave you to decide if anybody. No, let me rephrase this. I've got 3 discovery sessions, 3 fearless self-discovery sessions that are 60 minutes long, that I'm willing to gift to the listeners of this podcast. So
thank you so much, Sue, for your wise and being so open and candid about your journey. You know, I think that gives the strength to self and others.
It's part of what I pride myself now on being able to be authentic, because trust me, not everybody likes me, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I can say not everybody likes me with humor, but it's okay because I like me and I love myself. Respect the opinion. Whereas before that, running for the pills or the bottles or whatever, and it's just not healthy. Love yourself. You're worth it. Start to.
Yes. And increase the dose every day. Instead of that wine glass, go for a dose of self-love, you know, and that shot will keep you going and glowing each day.
Serotonin, the main contributory factors to all antidepressants on the planet, occur naturally in our bodies every single day.
Right. So amazing. Thank you so much, Sue. And goddesses, do follow her and get her, download the book, and it will be great, I'm sure. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.